Welcome back to Under Oath. Today we have actor David Oyelowo. David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Nice to see you.
I got to tell you, you're a brave guy. I followed your career. I've seen the choices you've made. And while some are an honor, I can't imagine taking on a role so important. And Selma, when you played Martin Luther King, I know you're going, this is an honor, but the fear you must have had, I better get this right.
Well, the film took so long to get made. I think all the fear drained out of me. It was such a hard film to get financed. So by the time we were actually doing it, I was just so relieved. It wasn't until people started watching the film that, to be honest, I caught up with the fact that, oh my God, what was I thinking playing Dr. King? But no, it was a huge blessing, that one.
I mean, but you've had a history of doing this. You came from the theater. You were with the Royal Shakespeare in London, and God, did you actually go to Stratford-on-Avon to do some work there, or was it just primarily?
Yeah, I spent several years in Stratford. I did 2 seasons with the Royal Shakespeare Company. Yeah.
People don't realize how important that is. They think, oh, it's just this company. No, this whole city is really. I mean, this is a huge deal.
It is. It's where Shakespeare was from. The whole town is sort of dedicated to Shakespeare, and it's a place where truly some of the greatest Shakespearean actors who ever walked the planet have been on those stages. So as an actor, to be part of that heritage is a real honor.
Now, a lot of my listeners and everything else, when I talk about the theater, they go, oh, no, television and movies are what we're thinking about. And they don't realize how difficult it is to start there and to transition, and the differences between acting for 5-10 seconds in a movie compared to like 3 hours on stage doing Othello.
Well, I think that's why most of what I guess we would all agree are the great actors of our time and times gone by have tended to be actors who have been on the stage, because, as you say, you can't fake it. You know, there are so many fail-safes with movies and TV. You have editors, you have marketing, you have, the smoke and mirrors of film. Not to say that film acting or TV acting isn't difficult, but with theater, there is simply nowhere to hide. And if you're able to conquer that, I think it stands to reason that TV and film becomes something that if you can master that, you're likely to be able to really tackle the difficult roles.
Now, I grew up who I thought were classical actors, the most amazing actors, and Laurence Olivier was one of those for me. And I was at the National Museum in London when he died. And I was thinking to myself, I said, we just lost this amazing actor. And you grew up idolizing certain actors. What is your connection when you go, I want to be like that actor? I loved what he did with his career. Did you ever go, I want to do exactly the same way he did it?
Well, there's no one I would say I want to do it exactly the way they did it, because that's futile. Everyone's different. Yeah. There are so many variables that impact the way your career plays out. But definitely Sidney Poitier was a North Star for me, just in terms of how groundbreaking he was as a performer, but the dignity, the elegance, the choices he made, the success he had. So he was definitely a North Star for me. Laurence Olivier, I think, certainly when it came to the stage, was also someone, obviously, he was kind of before my time in terms of really knowing his work while he was alive. But to play the Olivier stage was a big ambition of mine, which I only just realized about a year and a half ago. I played Coriolanus at the National Theatre on the Olivier stage. So again, to have people to aspire to have people who their achievements are something that you can have as a rung on a ladder to hold on to as you ascend is definitely useful as an actor. But, I've also realized it's futile to be preoccupied with trying to forge someone else's path. Everyone's path is going to be different.
Now, the hard thing about being an actor is your choices, like Martin Luther King, Othello. Now you're in a new movie that comes out at all the AMCs called Newborn.
Yeah.
And it's about somebody who basically was in solitary confinement for 7 years, and he's now free in the world. How do you go into a character like that? What kind of study goes behind that?
Well, crucial for me was finding someone who had endured that, because that is something, to be perfectly frank, I can't relate to. The idea of being in a room on my own all day, every day for 7 years, that I just cannot get my head around. I can barely get my head around it for a day. So I found we found a guy called Richard Rosario, who unfortunately was incarcerated for 20 years for a crime he didn't commit. 7 of those 20 years were in solitary confinement. And to talk to Richard, who was very generous with his time and his stories and his vulnerability and emotion, was my way in, really. And then there are several books on the subject matter. But the areas I could relate to Chris Newborn, my character in the film, was he's a father, he's a husband, he's a brother, and these are all relationships that play out in the film. And so those were also ways I could find into the character.
Now, I can't imagine you're reading this script and you're going, how deep do I want to go into this? And a lot of people don't realize, yes, it's called acting. But some of these characters live in you while you're doing it. Some of them, just to get hold of them, you might lose a little piece of yourself. You have a character like this who I can't imagine you lose 7 years of your life, much be alone. Movies are different. They stop and start the camera. Are you locked in for that whole 7 hours, or are you able to come in and out of it?
Different roles require different things. Playing Dr. King, that was one where I just felt I needed to stay in that character for the duration of the shoot. I did a film called Nightingale that I felt required the same thing. I'd had the privilege of acting with folks like Daniel Day-Lewis on Lincoln and Forrest Whitaker on Last King of Scotland, and watched how their dedication to the role and their staying in the pocket, so to speak, manifested in these great performances. So, that's something I've adopted as a method of my own. With playing Chris Newborn, my dad passed away on the first day of shooting. And so, to be honest, my emotional makeup was so churned through the course of the shoot that I watch the film now and I barely recognize myself, because I was already playing an intense role, and then I had one of the most intense things you deal with as a person happening at the same time. So, it's just one of those things. It's not how I would have had it. It's
Right.
how it played out. And so, yeah, I was almost forcibly in a very specific zone playing that role. And I think, for better or for worse, it sort of manifested in the character.
That's, I mean, I started a business, and a month after my father left us, and I had to keep on a daily basis doing that business.
Right.
And I didn't get 2 weeks off. I didn't get a month to grieve. I don't even think I got a day or two.
Right.
And, I can't imagine having to be on stage and everyone going, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And you having to tell them, I got this, I'm a professional. I can do this. And you just mentioned you watched yourself and you didn't recognize yourself in the character when you're watching it. I mean, was it an out-of-body experience, or were you just going, God, I don't even remember doing that day? Or, God, I know I did it, but there was so much stuff going on.
Well, I feel that way about those other performances I mentioned as well, where the character requires such a level of going to the character rather than bringing the character to you. The intensity of what the character is going through is fairly heightened, even though it's real. And so I think if you're doing your job well, i.e. being in service of the character, the chances are that And in one case, I'm
Yeah.
playing an iconic civil rights leader. In another, I'm playing a guy with dissociative identity disorder. In another, I'm playing a guy who's been in solitary confinement for 7 years. All things that are very far away from my own very happy life with my wife and kids. So I would expect and hope for it to feel out of body coming out of that experience, because it's thankfully, and I say thankfully even in relation to Dr. King, because I couldn't endure that many years with my life under threat, my kids, my wife's life under threat, with what he gave to the world and this country, America. So I think it stands to reason that once I've done my job, which is infinitely easier than the people who went through those things,
A little bit.
uh,
It's a little bit. Yeah.
I'm quite happy to be able to say I watch it and go, okay, I went to the character and I gained myself back.
Now, a lot of actors I talk to and some of the things I do, I hate watching myself.
Okay.
I sit there and I wonder if if I made the right choices. I wish I would have done something differently sometimes. When you're in the theater and you have a room full of people and you're just hoping they love the movie and they're hoping they get what you think.
Yeah.
Is it tough or is it easy?
It's never easy because, unfortunately for me, my profession is entirely dependent on other people's opinion, which I think is not the most healthy way to live.
No, it's not great.
But I don't do what I do for myself. I get a lot of satisfaction from it, but ultimately it's in service of the audience. I personally gain a lot from watching films I've done, TV shows I've done with an audience, because it's, I think, great to understand what is working and what is not, because what you thought you were projecting is often not what is the actual case, and sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. The difference with theater is that you can feel that feedback instantaneously. Yep. You can feel the energy in the room. You can see it in their eyes. With film, you have no idea, and so I really relish anytime I have an opportunity to watch the work alongside an audience.
Now, I have my kids, and my kids get to see me do cool things. They don't see the struggle that I went through. They didn't get to view that. When you're trying to teach your kids to say, listen, life is hard. You got to do all these things. Is it difficult for them because they didn't grow up the same way you did, because they've had a certain amount of privilege because they see their dad on the movies and they see all this? Do you do that dad thing where you say, hey, listen, it wasn't that easy. There are things that we had to go through.
What I found with my kids is that they respond and react far more to what my wife and I do, not what we say. And so, despite the fact that, as you say, I'm certainly living a very different life than I had growing up. My parents were poor, to be perfectly frank, and partly because they put every red cent into me and my brother's education. But we they worked themselves to the bone. It's partly why I was a bit of a latchkey kid and just spent so much of my youth watching TV, which is where I fell in love with acting. So I think it's a combination of what you do and the intentions with which you do things. We try to offset every fantastic holiday or circumstance that we have with giving back. We will go to countries that are very underprivileged, and we will, be in orphanages. We will build schools. We will build hospitals. I have a leadership scholarship for girls in Nigeria. My kids are part of that in terms of the fundraising, in terms of seeing the other side of life for people to offset the privilege that they are within. And it's proved to be very effective. Travel is huge as well. You live in America, Los Angeles, where we live, and you can feel very insulated from all of that. But we've been all over the world, and my wife and I have a 2-week rule. We're never apart for 2 weeks. That means the kids had to come everywhere. And so they've seen a lot of the world, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think all of that stuff, the doing as opposed to the saying, I think is the big difference.
Now, a lot of my audience doesn't realize that you get offers, but you also have to pay the bills.
Right.
So sometimes that offer comes where it has a nice check on it, but you're going, I really got it. It's a great offer, but I don't want to do it. How tough is it for you when you get handed a character and you're going, there's not enough here, but I got the light bill to pay?
It's not tough for me personally. I'm a man of faith. I'm a Christian. I've always had, or I've always tried to operate more from a place of faith than fear. And I think anytime you find yourself leaning towards something where your gut, your instinct, your conscience, your morality is telling you that's not the way to go, if it's fear driving that decision, I'm pretty good at walking the other way. And I've found it to almost always be rewarded by something better that comes along, or even just the peace of mind that comes from not taking an opportunity that is going to make it harder for you to look yourself in the mirror. And it's one of the things that is the most empowering for an artist is the word no, and I truly believe your no's clear the way for your yeses, both in terms of when you're rejected or when you are rejecting something. As time has gone on, it's become easier for me to say no. It also helps that, my wife and I have our own production company. We have our own streaming platform. We're distributing Newborn ourselves. We did that deal with AMC directly. So, we are now gaining the ability to be more in the driving seat of what we choose to do and how we choose to do it. That has come over time. But I think that's also because we've been quite good with what to say no to and what to say yes to.
Well, this is the selfish part of the show where I have a 20-year-old daughter in theater school, and I've asked some of the best producers, best directors, and best actors, what do you think the most important thing as an actor to get under your belt to have a long career?
Well, I always say to young actors, the difference between good and great is hard work. You can be as talented as can be, but if you're not prepared to put the work in, you will dry up. The opportunities will dry up. The talent will only get you so far. And the other component is kindness. I've seen so many talented actors who their insecurities or their fears have led them to be unkind to people. And it's a hard day's work being on a film set. And at some point, people are just going to get tired of you if you're not a kind, compassionate, considerate person, and you'll just stop working. So, the hard work and the kindness, I think, is the key to a long career.
Well, with about 2 minutes left, the movie Newborn, it's going to be in AMC theaters, only AMCs. They can't go to anything else.
Right.
They have to go to AMC. And then after that, where will it be?
Then after that, you'll be able to see it on all your platforms. It'll have the pay window, the PVOD as we call it. It'll probably end up on a streaming platform at some point soon. There will be an opportunity down the road for everyone to see Newborn. It's currently in limited release now in theaters, but please check it out when it happens upon your screen.
And how can they follow you on social media?
Oh, my name, David Oyelowo. That's my. I'm only on Instagram, so just my name, David Oyelowo.
Well, it's great talking to you, David, and good luck with your company. Good luck with future projects, and I can't wait to see you in this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This was a lovely conversation.